Let me tell you about a hard question that I got over the weekend. A friend challenged me about my position on these campus protests, which I think are breaking the rule of law in many cases, and why my view here is different than my view on the Canadian truckers who disrupted traffic to protest COVID-19 policies a couple of years ago. And it was a good question. It goes to the heart of what we think about civil disobedience and the expression of opinions. Here's why I'm against what you're seeing at places like Columbia to UCLA. You're free to express your own opinion, but you're not free to break the law as you do it. We need to enforce the rule of law when other students cannot attend their classes. I do think it is an appropriate behavior once you've been warned, once you've been able to publicly express your opinion, no matter whether or not somebody else agrees with it. You got to express your opinion. You then have to actually respect the laws that allow other people to exercise their own freedoms. That's why I believe that universities like Ohio State and IU, Indiana, and Texas were in the right to actually forcibly remove and, when necessary, arrest students that stopped other students from being able to attend their classes and get the education that they have paid to actually get from those universities. But that still leaves the question of Canadian truckers who blocked highways in protest of COVID-19 policies and vaccine policies, to whom I've actually offered a lot of complimentary praise. So where's the distinction? That's a hard question, and I believe in addressing the hard questions rather than just reciting standard conservative talking points. So let's get to the heart of that. I think part of the reason I have first a different distinction is you have a different standing to protest and to engage in civil disobedience when you yourself are the person who's actually affected by it. It's a very convenient thing to do, to be able to appropriate somebody else's cause, especially from halfway around the world, as your own. But to then be able to actually supposedly exercise civil disobedience on somebody else's account. It's different when you're talking about Rosa Parks in the back of the bus, or whether you're talking about Canadian truckers who themselves are being forced personally to use a COVID-19 vaccine that they did not want to use, that they felt was being foisted upon them, that protested the lockdown policies that affected the way that those truckers themselves were being able to carry out their own work and live their own lives and make a living. That's, I think, a much more sympathetic case for civil disobedience, yes, disobedience, than in the case of vaguely doing it on behalf of somebody else's cause without actually having any personal skin in the game or consequence yourself. That's a personal reaction that I have, is more sympathetic in one case rather than the other. But here's the other distinction. It was the response of the police state to the Canadian truckers that really bothered me. If somebody's blocking a highway or somebody's blocking a college campus, I do think that law enforcement authorities are in the right to actually remove them from the areas they're blockading so that other people are able to continue freely living their lives. That is different from using backdoor mechanisms that shouldn't be used in that context. Debanking those Canadian truckers, I think I had a major problem with that. And I think I would have an equal problem if these protesters, even on the grounds of Columbia or UCLA or elsewhere, were debanked, were unable to access the dollars in their bank accounts or had those dollars in their bank account wiped clean. The inability to participate in credit card transactions. That's a punishment of the wrong kind. It doesn't relate to the actual act of civil disobedience itself. Arresting them and removing them from a campus so that somebody else is able to go to their class, that is an action of the right kind. But you can't use backdoor mechanisms that weaponize supposedly neutral terrain, like our financial system, to do it. So that's my answer. Two reasons why is the Canadian truckers were directly affected themselves. And even though police would have been in the right to remove them physically from those highways, they were in the wrong to use the surveillance state and the weaponization of the financial system to penalize them through the back door. I think that's the principled answer. And especially in challenging moments, we got to check ourselves to say, if we're free speech absolutists, how do we actually feel when the same shoe fits the other foot? I'm glad my friend challenged me. And I think it's important that we look ourselves in the mirror and answer why we actually adopt the policies that we do.